Hello everyone. Make sure my camera's going. It is. Welcome to another edition of Our Couple of Acres. I'm Clayton and we're here in Delaware on November 27th, and we've got a beautiful sunny day, moderate temperatures, and the weatherman says we're going to be like this for quite a few days to come. So I thought today would be a good day to dig some canna bulbs. These were canna bulbs that I planted in front of my lima beans because of their terrific flowering capabilities. I figured that the canna flowers would help attract the bees, which in turn would pollinate my lima beans. Well, it turned out that the soil was so rich because I amended it with compost and composted horse manure that the canna bulbs actually outgrew the lima beans and blocked the sun. They grew to be about 5 to 6 feet tall and put out a gorgeous scarlet, deep red bloom at the top. So what I sacrificed in lima growth, I gained in the gorgeous beauty that these cannas put out. And boy, are they ever pretty. So what we're going to do today is dig a root ball and show you how many plants we're going to have from one root ball for next year. We're going to divide this root ball into probably between 20 and 25 separate bulbs for next year's planting. And we will have a ton of bulbs left over that I'll be giving away to family and friends. So what we will do in order to dig this root ball up is I have a spade here, and we're going to dig, well, some people use a turning fork, but these root balls are so big, I'm going to have to use the spade so I can dig down a little further. But what we will do is dig approximately 6 to 8 inches away from the outside of the root ball. That way we won't damage any of the tubers that are underground. They're not too deep and the roots aren't real deep, so they do come up fairly easily. During this video, I may have to turn my back on you once or twice to get around this root ball. So let's have at it. Once this circle is cut, the root ball will come out fairly easily based on the fact that the roots really aren't that deep. And you'll see when I tip this thing over and show you. See, it's starting to fall already with just one circle around the base. A lot of times these root balls will actually divide themselves as they're coming up out of the ground. I will leave the foliage on the plant. I'll remove it later, but as we remove this root ball, the foliage will act as a handle to help to pull this root ball free of the soil. Again, excuse me for turning my back on you, but we're almost ready to bring her up. So I'll grab the foliage and just sort of tilt that baby back. And there we have it, it's up out of the ground. So we'll knock some dirt off back into the hole. We want these roots as clean as possible for when we go to store them in about a week or so. See, they break apart fairly easily, and we'll go ahead and remove this root ball and take it over to the dividing table, and I'll show you how we divide them, remove the foliage, and set them out to dry for about a week prior to storing them for the winter. I'll store them in the basement in paper bags and boxes. I'll address that at a later point in this video. Thanks for watching. We'll go on over to the drying table. I'll be right back with you. Another point, you might want to wear gloves when you do this. They are somewhere. I thought they were in my pocket, but There somewhere. All right, we're back. We've moved a wheelbarrow full of Canna roots over here to our drying table, which is basically pallets that are stacked on top of plastic tables, garden tables, to keep them off the ground. And the good thing about pallets when you're drying root crops is that it allows air up through the bottom and the top. So you have really good circulation, air circulation, to allow your roots to dry properly. You want them nice and dry before you store them away for the winter. Moisture will promote not only bulb rot, but also trick them into thinking, hey, it's time to grow again. I feel moisture. So you want to make sure they're real dry for about a week, and then we'll go through the storage process when these have dried. So I've done a couple of roots here and divided them down into planting size. So we'll go ahead and do another one. Okay, this is a fairly large one, and at this stage we will go ahead and cut off the foliage from the top, leaving maybe an inch next to the bulbs. That's not a science, just as long as you cut them down fairly close. You want to try to leave the wound though above the bulbs, because there may be some rot developed at the site of the wound, and that will allow it to dry off. Now this foliage, I'm just going to put it in a pile, and we'll put them on the compost pile, and they'll break down and help amend that great black gold compost soil that we'll be putting around our plants and in our planting beds next year. So here's that bulb. I'll bring it over closer to you. This is just about 25% of the entire root ball that came off of that one plant. And when I planted last year, this one bulb created that entire root ball that filled up half of that wheelbarrow. So they multiply underground, and you have a very large amount of bulbs at the end of the growing season. So what we'll do here is we'll knock off by hand, gently, as much of this remaining dirt as we can see. Okay, just gently. You don't want to damage the tubers, because they already have little places where next year's growth is beginning. So we'll knock as much dirt off with our fingers as we can. Be sure to wear a pair of gloves, because this will send us all for a mani-pedi. I don't know whether you fellas have tried that yet, but my wife and I go on a regular basis, and it's fantastic. So we got the majority of that dirt out there. So let's start just breaking apart this root pack by hand. They break fairly easily. You don't want to damage them too bad. Now, that's a fairly large planting for next year. That's just the way that it grew off of the root bulb. It's fine that size. I would prefer for it just to be about that size without this extended part, but we'll leave that on there because there's some open root there that will have to harden off, and if it does decide to rot, it'll rot very slowly towards the bulb and help protect this bulb system. So now that we've got it clean, we'll clean it up even a little further. We're going to take a soft rubber brush and gently brush the remaining dirt off the root ball. As I said before, if you store these away in the wintertime with dirt on them, it will only promote two things. Number one, it will break down and be somewhat moist and lead to bulb rot, which we definitely don't want. And also that moisture will make the roots think that, oh, here I feel some moisture, whether I have sunshine or not, I'm going to start growing. And you don't want that. You want the bulb to have its dormancy time during the winter time, just like any of your perennials, hydrangeas, burning bushes, whatever you may have with Geolia. They all go into a dormancy in the winter time, and that dormancy is required for the health of the plant. So, and that applies to bulbs also. So, as soon as we get the majority of the dirt off of it, we'll take our scissors. Well, they were here. Here they are. I fell out of my pocket. And you see these roots, they're fairly long. And what we're going to do is, for the health of the plant and to aid to its dormancy, we're going to trim these roots off back to about 1 inch. Don't worry, it's not harmful to the plant. In fact, it's beneficial. It will promote strong root growth in the spring after it's planted, and will also lead to a denser and stronger root system in the spring. Now, as with any other tuber, after cutting your roots and cleaning them up, we'll store them. But in the springtime, when we bring them out to plant, we're going to make sure that we plant this roots down into the ground about 3 to 4 inches deep. You don't have to go real deep with them, sort of like irises, only just a little deeper, maybe 1 inch deeper. And make sure that these nodes are facing up. This one has 4 nodes, which will be next year's leaf growth that comes up out of the ground. So you want to make sure that they're facing up towards the sun. And as these grow, you will have initially 4 leaf stalks come up. But as this root expands, you will have more and more and more, to the point where you will probably have between 10 and 15 stalks come off of this one root ball. I think I mentioned that these are purple leaf variety that have a very beautiful red, scarlet colored, deep red scarlet colored bloom at the top. They're just gorgeous. So I'll go ahead and do the rest of these roots the same manner, and I'll lay them here on the pallets and let them dry for about a week, and I'll be back and show you how we store them in the basement for the winter. When I lay them on the pallets, I actually lay them so they're over the gaps. That way the air circulates from the bottom onto them and also from the top to give them a real good drying sequence. All right, I'll be back.